Good afternoon, everyone. This is Real Football Podcast. We are at episode 10, and this episode is titled World Cup Transfer Winter Wonderland and Spreadsheets. We are here with our Sheikh, Matt Atbury, who is going to lead the charge right after I introduce the podcast, and Khalid Namez, Thomas Serre, Alex Hayes, and we are going to be joined by a couple more people as we go forward. This is a very exciting podcast because we're going to talk about the World Cup, of course, and many other things. But the World Cup has been, in my view, and in the view of many people, uh, you know, to avoid saying one of the best, it was extremely exciting and brought to bear a lot of new things that I hope the good of which will stick. So I'll say a couple words about the actual nature of this particular podcast. In this episode, well after the confetti has been cleared from Doha, we look at the victors and other awardees of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Our team will, these people here, will also debate where various national teams go after the coaching switches have gotten underway. Other topics of interest will be this past January's spending and why the Premier League maintaining its status as the best league in the world in this manner is bad for the game. And a new trend of analytics, which some of us have things to say about, and what that could mean for the beautiful game. Most of us don't like stats a lot. Some expressed some interest in it, so we'll talk about this, especially if a couple of people joined. One of them has that view. We also pay tribute to the man responsible for that turn of phrase, the beautiful game, and his awe inspiring legacy. So I'll let Matt take it over and talk about this particular human being who just passed.
Yeah, thank you, Bassam. Edson Arantes do Nascimento, more commonly known to us peasants as Pele, is one of the greatest humanitarians who ever graced not just a football pitch, but this earth. That is why, in tribute, I am wearing a Brazil kit. It is not a Pele kit, but close enough. He visited almost 100 countries, dozens of heads of state, literally stopped at least one civil war just so people could watch him play for 90 minutes. And regardless of my feelings of animosity towards the Brazilian national team because they can't defend right, it feels like we should respect this man. And it is very bittersweet to me that he was able to see the joys and greatness of Argentina in this past World Cup, and Maradona was not. Regardless of the fact that he scored, like, what was it, over 1,000 goals? Like, Pele's stats are so stratospheric, even I can't remember all of them. The only one I can remember is that he scored 77 goals for Brazil, and that's because it's a small number compared to the other goals he scored. Like, we're talking about a man who won 3 World Cup finals. Excuse me. We're talking about a man who scored again over 1,000 goals, won Copa de Libertadores, won everything conceivable in his era, and he was such a winner that the Brazilian government literally called him a national treasure to prevent him from signing for Juventus in 1960. Like, talk about stratospheric. That is all-time sporting greatness. And I know, especially in the United States, we get very absorbed in our own sporting figures, our own sporting legacies, like the Michael Jordans and all those other bums, quite frankly. Pele is beyond that. He always will be, he always has been, and to quote the late great Andy Warhol, the only person who ever contradicted my phrase of 15 minutes of fame was Pele. He will have fame for 15 centuries. And if anyone else has anything to add to that, feel free at this point.
Yeah, especially those of us who are old. like me. I actually do remember. I don't know how. I think I'm significantly older than the oldest person here. So I do remember 1974 when I was watching or at least parts that I could remember of the World Cup. I do remember there was discussion about Pele and Brazil, and of course he wasn't playing in '74, and then he went on to do many things in the U.S. and beyond. And I never saw him play in the World Cup, but I grew up watching videos and buying or renting actually VHS copies of his highlights, and yeah, it was kind of like the first magazine you get a. I shouldn't say this here. It was beautiful.
I mean, we marvel at the technicians that we have in the modern game, like Kevin De Bruyne, um, Riyad Mahrez. Let me pick somebody who isn't a City player. Obviously, Messi and Mbappe, but Pele invented that stuff on the pitch, live before our eyes.
Yeah, and I was watching a series of documentaries about Garincha, and one of the things that we really all don't appreciate, including people who think Pele is the goat, no question. People who think so. I mean, I don't support that, but I admire him endlessly. What we don't realize, or some of us don't realize, is that a huge portion of what Pele has done on the pitch is not captured but via camera, including some really remarkable goals that people talk about until today in Brazil and beyond. And I think this is interesting because everyone else who is in the running for the GOAT, whether it's Maradona, Messi, uh, I mean, I don't know if there's really anybody else beyond Cruyff and Ronaldo squared. They've all been captured. I mean, almost everything they've done, with the exception maybe of Cruyff in a couple of instances, because I know that because I worship Cruyff. So yeah, and that should actually be accounted for. Let's see who else here would like to throw in something about Pele before we move on.
Tama, you got a comment?
Yeah, um,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like talking about Pelé as the goat. Or I don't know if it makes sense, but what is kind of different with Pelé compared to Maradona, Platini, Zidane, Ronaldo, the real one, and Ronaldo, the other one. These kind of players that Pelé is. He played in a time when you could be the best player in the world and not play in Europe. You could play your entire career in Santos and in the US and still be the goat or the best player in the world. So it's also like it's also the vestige of a period when football was less centered, less concentrated, and that's what is gone also with Pelé. Regardless of the man, whom I didn't like that much, the players I don't know, I never saw him play. But like it's a period where when football was actually happening on two different continents. It was like Latin America was then a powerhouse for real high level football, which is now less obvious, less the case, at least at the
Very
club
apt.
level.
That's a very apt point. But to Bassam's point earlier, I am currently wearing a Garincha kit. Um, but I could rant for about 3 hours about Garincha. Let's talk about, and not to diminish Pele's legacy in any way, but the show must go on. Bassam, I know you have been ecstatic for about a month and a half. Your boy, your idol, Lionel Andres Messi, is now a world champion. How does that feel to say? Because, it's not that I don't like Messi, I'm just not as big a fan as you are. But even I feel a bit of satisfaction saying the sentence that Messi is a world champion.
look, of course I feel satisfied. Of course I'm very happy. I've been waiting for this. He's definitely one of. I mean, he's the person I think all around is up there and at the top and so on. But I want to say something more interesting first. Did you notice how when Toma was trying to say, this GOAT debate, whether it's Pele, Ronaldo, the real one, and the other one, or Zidane, he shoved Zidane, or so on, and Maradona, he didn't even mention Messi.
I mean,
Anyway,
he's allowed to be a sore loser. You only get to try and win the World Cup once every 4 years.
yeah, well, no, anyway, so let me just say that since I started watching Messi in the mid 2000s, and to be honest, I was busy doing documentaries at the time, and I was flying all over the world and doing all kinds of other things and building and getting my career off the ground and teaching and so on. I did not follow football as much as I do now, but I used to always follow the basics, which perhaps many of us did when we were busy. We kept up with the basics, and ever
I
since.
feel like our version of the basics on this podcast is way more advanced than most people. Just saying,
I
but
mean,
continue.
yeah. I mean, the basic leagues, the basic, definitely the World Cup, always the World Cup, the basic leagues, the basic games, and it was always a thorn, as everyone knows, and as so many shows, including the ESPN. I forget the name. That show I watched that quite a bit actually because it's interesting and it has a long legacy. I mean, it's been a huge, wait like for Messi to actually finally do it, and it happened, and it's satisfying. But there's a kind of elation that's not like yes, it's more like finally, right? I mean, I think that's I have seen so many shows and read so many articles about, including sophisticated ones that want to make football like I don't know that they want that people who want to approach football in a way that is over intellectualized, and that's fine with me. But even there, I mean, there is a consensus that it was more like finally rather than oh my god he won the World Cup, and I just think it was well deserved, and his performance in the World Cup, in my view, is not just better than any other World Cup he played in, but it could very well be his last stand, even if he continues to play with PSG, and even if Scaloni wants him to come back when he's like 80 to play in the next World Cup. But I'll stop here. I mean, we've been messied out a little bit in the past month.
I don't actually ever think we will ever truly be messied out. He is that phenomenal of a player. But what really sticks out to me about him winning that World Cup, like you said, this was in a different sport. This was in our North American sport. I think it was hockey. A team broke an over 50-year title drought the year before I was born. And this like 10-year-old kid at the parade said, "Thank God, now I can die in peace." I feel like that's how a lot of Argentina fans feel, is that they can have that kind of peace. And I also think that this is the nail in the coffin for the argument versus for Messi versus Ronaldo. And it's not just because I don't like Ronaldo, although that certainly plays a part in my emotions. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Ronaldo failed at this World Cup as the elder statesman, where Messi succeeded. And there is something to be said about that. And it's not just that Ronaldo's replacement scored a hat trick when replacing him, or that he essentially effed off to Saudi Arabia to play for Al Nassr instead of a European team. But we have watched, and like I said, I watched like 7 different sports. Like I watch professional rugby, for goodness sakes. I can never remember a great player falling this quickly ever. And I've been watching sports since I was like a little kid. So we're talking about 20 years of data, not to brag about my own memory, but I don't ever remember a player falling as quickly as Ronaldo has to join the Saudi Arabian League, talk a bunch of nonsense on Piers Morgan's show, which, by the way, Piers Morgan's a parasite. And now he's this. Messi is at the top, and Ronaldo is absolutely at the bottom. Thomas?
Toma, please throw in.
Yeah, I mean, bon, I'll talk about Messi in a second, but I think that it's very unfair to Ronaldo. The guy is 37. Regardless of the money thing, I mean, and the political thing with Saudi Arabia, Messi would do the exact same thing. It's like politically, these people have absolutely no compass. So let's not judge them based on their political actions if we want to stick to the football part of it. The guy is 37, Messi is 35. 2 years when you're over 34 is enormous. So in 2 years from now, Messi will be like, given what he's doing right now on the pitch, he will be like basically in a wheelchair. So yeah, I mean, like that, there is something. Then if you look at Portugal and Argentina, the main difference is that Portugal was not a team made for Ronaldo, when Argentina was a team made 100% for Messi. And this is my main contention with Messi, regardless of the fact that he's the best football player I've seen in my life. It's not the football player that I appreciate the most. I mean, I like midfielders. So for me, De Bruyne and Iniesta are above Messi by 1,000 yards, but that's not the point. In this World Cup, Messi
Is
is
Zidane a goal
benefiting
player then?
from the work of a team of like bulldogs who've been amazing, all of them. And typically in the final, the best player until minute 65 is Di Maria. It's Di Maria who's doing everything. He's amazing. Di Maria is 33, by the way. McAllister, Alvarez. These players are amazing. There are a bunch of assholes in the Argentinian team. Paredes, Martinez. These people are assholes. But the team itself had a spirit for Messi. Everything was done for Messi. And so he just basically benefited from this amazing team building and Scaloni. But in terms of like being the best player of the World Cup, and this is my main contention, when you compare what Modric did for Croatia, I mean, like, do people understand what Modric do? He's 36, 37. I mean, this guy is amazing. It's just like there is no comparison between what Modric did for his team and for football in general and what Messi did. But Modric will remain, this kind of like obscured hero when his performance for like the entire World Cup, like from match one to the last one, so he played the same number of games, is just beyond everything I've seen. But he's not scoring penalties. Like he doesn't have like 5 penalties to score, so he's not on the score sheet. But I find it so unfair that somebody like Modric doesn't receive the kind of recognition he deserves. He does receive a lot of love, but we are talking about probably the best midfielder in the world at 36.
I don't think you're
He's
paying
still the best player, and in club he's still the best.
Luka Modric
When
enough
Messi is not
credit.
the best in club. That's my opinion, at least.
But with Portugal also, given the way that they crashed out, they fired Fernando Santos, and that started the coaching carousel of national team managers. Thomas, I know that you've been very passionate about Zidane eventually coaching France, but Santos got fired, the Mexico coach got fired. Not that it's going to make a difference anyway, because they're always going to qualify out of North America and then crash out in the last 16. That's ordained in the tea leaves. Roberto Martinez wasted the golden generation of Belgium. And Luis Enrique is out of a job partly because Khaled, the man on your shirt, cannot finish. And you are purely wearing that shirt to piss me off, and it's working. Defend your choice.
I figured, yeah. Well, I figured. So Toma has been sending messages out of band, and you're condemning my choice. But I like the color pink. What can I say? Can we go back real
I
quick
like the
to
color pink
Ronaldo?
too.
Matt? Ronaldo is 37. It's the twilight of his career. He never professed. I can't remember any of them. Generally speaking, these, like Thomas said, these guys, generally speaking, do not care about political justice or political principles or social justice or anything like that. Very few of them do. What is your objection to Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia and getting a shit ton of money and living the twilight of his career that way?
I will tell you what my objection to Ronaldo is in short order. Number one, the club he has scored the most career goals against is Spurs. So I hate him for
Okay.
that.
Okay,
And the
okay.
other reason that I find Ronaldo objectionable, and I am aware that footballers are essentially money pits, but he is supporting a bid for Saudi Arabia to host the World Cup against his own country, the country he captains. I am not patriotic at all. There are glasses on my table. There is a statuette of a cobra on my table that is more patriotic to the United States than I am. I understand this. But if you are willing to be bought, have your patriotism bought and sold and merchandised, I'm sorry, you're an asshole. Also, he scored too many times against Spurs, especially
Yeah, I
that
think I
part.
think I think that first part is the strongest. The second part, I mean, these guys with so much money thrown at them, they'll they'll campaign for Satan himself if he wants to organize the World Cup. Okay, I interrupted your flow regarding the turnover of coaches. Which coach firing do you guys feel was unwarranted
None
or
of them. They
overzealous?
all deserve to be fired.
I'm not.
There was a couple of resignations, but these were voluntary. Like I can't remember his name, but Ghana's coach actually said before the World Cup, if they made the World Cup, he was going to resign after the tournament. Which hey, you say that, that's essentially putting your 2 weeks in.
I'm not totally for letting go Tuco from Chelsea. I'm not
No,
for him. I don't support him, but I think that was a bit too jumpy.
Thomas Tuchel looks like Charlie in the Box from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and he plays an absolutely abhorrent brand of football. And just based on his ears alone, he should be fired.
Excellent. I like this kind of data-driven analysis.
Alan Omar,
What about we don't see Omar on the
One
screen,
coach
do we?
who wasn't fired, and Alex, I know you wanted to talk about this coach most of all. One coach who wasn't fired was Gareth Southgate.
Look,
Yeah.
thanks,
So
Matt.
Gareth just
Gareth,
joined
Thanks
us.
for bringing me in on this. And um, but look, actually, I don't like talking about England, except to say I enjoy watching them fail, essentially. But I don't think that Southgate and if you guys have a different opinion on this, I really don't think that he has done anything that the FA has any right to complain about. Yeah, they haven't won anything, but I mean this is normalcy for England, and he's been more successful than anyone except the man who did win their one World Cup in '66. And so the question for me is, there are a couple of in-game things that could have happened, like I think against the US, if Henderson had come on earlier, they probably would have won the game. Obviously, Harry Kane scores the penalty against France, and maybe the whole story of the World Cup is different. So honestly, I think it's really down to the players, and I don't think there's anybody else who could buy into the culture that the FA is trying to build. Um, so I say this in defense of Gareth Southgate, but primarily probably because I just don't want England to ever win anything. So that's my take
It's
on
funny
that.
you mentioned that you don't want England to win anything, Alex, and I know that you are the newest member of the Real Football Group, but as you can see, I have fairly long hair. When I was 14, yeah, I was 14. I made a bet with my father that if England ever won a major tournament, I would shave my head bald. This is how long my damn hair is. It goes off of camera. That is how long my hair is. But
I don't think
I
you'll
see
have to.
joined us to gloat about Argentina's glorious victory. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel great. I came in here and I saw immediately that the analysis is much deeper than I was planning on jumping and dancing around and
no, no, please
singing
go
the
ahead. Please, please.
Argentina
I'm
saw.
dying for somebody to do something like that.
I will. I'll sign off with the World Cup song for Argentina. Hi, Thomas. Sorry if I'm going to have to do that, but yes, it's good to be here. I was going to make three quick points because I feel I didn't have the right to join. I joined very late. Sorry about
No,
that. I
no,
was driving back to the
we
airport.
actually took a while to start, so you're fine.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to say is about Messi, my main man, my guy. Is he finally won? He finally got over the edge in the World Cup. It was an amazing. Obviously,
Yeah,
it was
but
a kind of scripted 12 almost. That this is his last hurrah. I don't know quite anyone who's had that. Obviously, there's no one who's had a career like Messi. But I was thinking about the only person I could think of who sort of never won the big game, even though obviously he's won many championships. But like John Elway, this is probably completely out of left field.
You
But John,
really just cited the Broncos. Omar, hang up now. You just cited the Broncos.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I promise it won't happen again. But like someone who was supposedly an excellent or one of the best, and then only won towards the end of his career. Except Messi won it more of a protagonist than Elway did when he won the sort of the titles. And the
Yes,
most
but this
important
is
thing
the
I'll
real
say,
football podcast. We are not going to talk about Terrell Davis right now.
correct, correct. So the only thing I'll say is, other than what's been said by lots of people, and this has already probably also been said, but that Messi played like we always wanted him to play with Argentina, which is without fear. He always played with fear. He was almost like more afraid of losing than actually wanting to win. You could see it from his body language. You could see it from how he dropped his head. This time, I really felt that he really reached a mental state that even if he had lost, it was going to be, he was fine somehow. He had reached a stage with winning the Copa America or whatever it is, and he let himself loose. And that's the kind of thing people were looking for. And that was the knock on him before that. I think he sort of answered that. The second thing I wanted to say is that all the silliness about Messi winning and not winning the championship and the Ronaldo or Messi debate obscures from the fact that this has been a golden age of Argentine football for the past decade and a half. If you think about the fact that they made six finals, and of course Messi is the constant there, and so is Di Maria. I guess you could say they're the two constants, but otherwise the players are completely new. Other than Otamendi, who I don't even know how he's still playing in defense. That shows you the lack of options. But from the 2014 World Cup, everyone else is different. It's amazing, and I think it's a testimony for Argentine football that they're, you can't just be Messi. You have to have people who defend. You have to have people who can carry the ball. So to make it to six finals is amazing. And I mean, I was born in 1978 when they won their first World Cup. They've been to the final, basically what they've won three and been to two more finals in that period. So
No,
five
they've been
finals.
to three. They've been to six finals overall, I think. They
Right,
lost
six
in
finals.
90, they lost in 2014, and they lost in 1930.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty amazing. I would say the big difference this time from the 2014 is they could actually score. I was looking back at how many goals they scored last time, and it was they scored 8 goals in the tournament and only two after the group stage in 2014, whereas now they scored 15 and 10 after the group stage. So you have to put the ball in the back of the net. But I'm not as nervous as some people are of the impending retirement of Messi. I think Argentina will produce talent. I think they have some a good core right now, and I honestly think that Messi continuing much longer will be a burden on the progress of Argentina, since he's the center of so much of what they do. Like in a way he was to some extent, as good as he was for Barcelona towards the last couple of years, he was sort of the burden preventing them from progressing. Um, you know, of course, that's a bigger debate. And finally, the last thing I'll say is it's freaky, and I'm not superstitious, but it's amazing that Argentina won and Napoli is gonna probably win after the death of Maradona. That somehow his presence live was too much of a cross to bear, having him hanging over your head. Now that he's finally dead, we can let go. And then the last thing is muchachos, ahora no volvimos a ilusionar. Quiero ganar la tercera. Quiero ser campeón mundial. Y Diego, en el cielo lo podemos ver.
No, if you want to put them off now, you can.
Diego con la tota, alentando a Lionel. Thank you.
Again, Thomas, if you
nice,
want to
Alma.
put them
Very
off
nice.
now,
Awesome.
you can.
I'm just
Awesome.
trying
The
all of
fact that you
the tricks I
compared
have here.
Messi to John Elway Omar, we're going to have conversations after the show, and they're not going to be pleasant.
My bad. Sorry about that. I told you, it won't happen again. I just get carried away.
No.
It's not even about the fact that it's American football. It's that you choose that horse tooth idiot.
All right.
But
Well,
back to the real football. One of the things that has become more prevalent since the World Cup ended is the usage of data in a very specific way that I'll admit I was not familiar with. And Alex, you brought up a player from Brighton who I believe killed Liverpool today. Can you tell me more about him and tell me specifically about the part where he killed Liverpool, because that was not a handball in 2019.
Right. Okay. First of all, Liverpool killed Liverpool today, and they've been killing themselves for a long time. So let's not give credit to other teams when my club self-destructs. But I guess this question of data is something that I'd love to hear everyone discuss. But it is really interesting when you think about the level of and the way data is being used in other sports to analyze, what players are doing on a very, very small level. What I brought up initially was a university project that this player Matoma, who scored today and played very, very well for Japan at the World Cup. He did a thesis project on dribbling, and he analyzed 1v1 dribbling and put all kinds of data hookups onto his teammates at his university side, and was able to use the data from that to analyze what do the best dribblers do, what do they see, and what do they how do they perceive their progress toward goal, etc. And he's obviously a great dribbler. So this is what I brought up, and I think that data is going to be used to give clubs advantages, because especially when we have a situation where everything is about money, how can you get a better result on a lower budget is always going to be a big question. So, I mean, this is a problem we can debate. It has ideological components, just like the discussion about Messi and Ronaldo has and everything else. But it's a very interesting question, and so I guess if anyone else has,
if I may,
things to say on it.
If I may, yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
You go first.
No, you
react after you.
Well, no, you used the proper.
yeah,
the
but
proper slide. Go ahead.
No
So I should go first.
offside.
No, it's true.
Feel
It's true.
free.
I mean, if we have rules, it's for something. Or it's chaos. No, I just wanted to say that what you said, Alex, is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely, like it's about the money, and what you see is that obviously clubs that are increasingly financialized, that are driven by or that are owned by hedge funds, are driven to limit the risk. And data, from this perspective, is a way to orient your investment, as it is in the field of global health, in the field of public policy, in the field of military operations. Data is a way to frame your investment and make sure that you have a return on investment, or at least like maximize your return on investment. What is obviously like a club like Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, which is not driven by money but by politics, doesn't give a fuck about data. what they want are names. So you don't need data for that. I think that what is worrying is that data, as long as it is to scout players, doesn't affect the way in which you play. If you start to use big data as a way to understand the game itself, there is a chance that you might drastically reduce the variety of styles. And one of the problems with that we have is also that games are increasingly broadcasted on TV. So there is a huge database available. And we can assume that at one point, somebody is going to invest in some kind of systematic reviewing and organizing of the database that we have, and that the sport itself is going to change drastically based on the reviewing of this database, and that's what worries me. But if it's for scouting, I understand the logic. It's less dangerous in terms of like what we see on TV or what we see in the stadium.
Khaled, you
Thank
had
you.
your
Can I?
point first. You go first, and then I'll go.
I'm sorry. So one thing I'd like to interject. Bassam, you're still with us? Your screen is black.
Yeah, I'm with you,
Uh,
folks.
okay.
Feel free to just interject, because one of the things that we would
Right.
like to do is to create controversy, and feel free to interject, so long as
Yeah.
somebody's not talking.
Yeah. Well, controversy right here. So this thing, this thing about using big data in sports, I'm surprised, Matt, out of all people, you haven't heard. I mean, it's been in news for. I remember when Zidane was being groomed to take over at Real Madrid, he was using data analytics. So I did a quick, like a 15-minute search this morning, and there's a bunch of companies out there. The biggest one is called Opta. That's the biggest sport data OPTA, sports data statistics platform, which is a company. There's more than one. They collect all kinds of statistics using computers, but also using humans watching games and counting passes and things like that. And eventually, you end up with this massive database. For example, they have data on 1.5 million passes and what are the patterns and what happens based on certain passing patterns, etc. When you're taking a free kick, from which angle, and what is the most likely place, where should you place it regardless. This has existed for a long time. This is not a new trend by any means.
It's not
The thing
new, but it's
is,
dangerous.
well, here's the thing. The the nature of football itself, even with the utilization of big data, the game, it has a huge chaotic aspect to it, where you have 11 individuals, 11 humans made of not software and
Khaled,
hardware,
you
right?
don't have to explain to me the chaos of football. I'm a Tottenham fan. I understand football and
Yeah.
chaos.
Yes. So case in
Uh,
point. So I think the concern here is that does the utilization of big data and these advanced analytics turn games into like matches of AI
chess.
models, as opposed to humans playing with heart and passion, etc. That's the concern here. What the point I'm
That's
trying to make is that given the nature of football, there is even with the most advanced analytics, you can still have exciting games with interesting results that no computer could ever predict.
I have seen analytics, and I'm going to use this word very purposefully, destroy two sports in America, baseball and basketball. I know baseball is like Bassam's absolute favorite game ever. But I understand math. I like math. I understand math better than I understand people. And all of you probably know that, given that I'm about as awkward as a freaking kitchen sponge in social interactions. I don't like what data has done to both of those sports, because while it is efficient, it is also fucking dreadful to watch, pardon my language. I don't want to watch teams spam, essentially, because that's what it's turned into. Like baseball is turned
Matt,
into a spam of home runs.
Matt, do you think I can interject here? I'm sorry. I
Oh yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
that it's very important to recognize the difference, um, as Khaled was alluding to. Uh, I mean, whether you're a very regimented coach and you have a system and you do everything through philosophies, or you want to encourage more creativity, it's really a case of you know giving your players the tools to go out onto the pitch, think for themselves for 90 minutes. And I think in that sense, football is kind of immune to some of the problems that you see from data um, in other sports. And I think that the point about the clubs that are more interested in you know politics and sort of establishing themselves as global brands that reflect the regime not being interested in data just illustrates the point of how do we allow clubs on a very different financial footing to compete with one another. I'm not saying it's not a problem and it's not going to change things, but ultimately it depends what your philosophies are. Whether I mean, um, you know, one of the I
So
mean, we were
you're
talking about
suggesting that
Messi.
Brighton is
He
the
would not
Oakland
have
A's?
survived, right? Barcelona had before Cruyff came to Barcelona, they had a system where they were actually able to determine the final height of their youth players, and they wouldn't let people in their youth team if they weren't reaching a certain height, right? So you know, the incorporation of people and the recognition of talent and the development of talent, I think, can be supported with data if data is used in the right way. And the concerns that are there are certainly there, and I think Thomas made some really important observations. But I don't think you need to be as terrified as you sound to me, Matt. So.
I'm a Luddite. I Every time I try and hook a printer up to my laptop, I feel paranoid, and that is just how I am. I'm not suggesting that using data is bad, but I've seen what it's done to baseball and basketball and what it's starting to do to American football, and it makes for a less visually appealing product. With that said, speaking of data, Thomas, data on Mbappe, can he run it back and can you win in 2026?
Like, is it possible?
Well, of course it's possible. It's possible that eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick a country by the toe, Niger wins the 2026 World Cup. But, speaking of analytics and talent depth and all of that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms
you're
of
coming off of a very painful defeat. Do you think that this group under Deschamps can bounce back in 4 years?
um, I guess that the painful defeat is the final is painful. The World Cup is exceptional given the way in which the team had been impacted by injuries. I mean, like when you have like 11 players, like 11 starting players in a team, five of them cannot be at the World Cup. It's not the same team. So we were missing half of our starting players, and we went to the finals. So it's a great World Cup, all things considered. We are very lucky. Um, the question is in terms of depth. I think that besides England and maybe Brazil, there is no competitor. So that's clearly France will be still in 4 years from now among the favorites. Then the problem is Deschamps. I mean, I don't like Deschamps. I think that especially for this
He
World
won
Cup,
your World
he
Cup
will
and
have
you
to
don't
do
like
something.
him.
Hmm?
He
What's
won
that?
you a World Cup and you don't like him.
No, but
Are
I
you
like him.
telling
I
me
mean,
that
I
France
respect the
fans
winner. I respect the winner,
Are
but
you
the
telling
question
me
is
that
like,
France fans are as fickle as England fans?
no, because we win much more often than the Brits. So that's one thing.
English,
No,
not the Brits.
I
I am Scottish.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
not
I mean,
impunge me with Englishness.
That's,
Do not
and I
indulge
think
me.
that the French have been historically very supportive of French Scottish independence. So I mean, we shouldn't be questioned on this. But like nonetheless, I think that when it comes to Deschamps, there is the question of winning, and he does win. That's certain. And the question of like the kind of display on the pitch. And my problem with Deschamps is that I've seen it for 10 years now. I know that it works. Do I want to see it for another 10 years? I mean, and also there is also the question of like Zinedine Zidane coaching Mbappe, which is that just like the kind of things, at one
That
point
will be
all the
beautiful when it
planets should be
happens.
aligned. And we've seen that when Maradona was the coach for Argentina and like worked with Messi, like you didn't have like some kind of miracle happening. It was as dreadful as it could be. But I think that Zidane is meant to coach the French team at one point, and Deschamps should have gone after this one as a legend, and everybody would have been happy. As for Mbappe is, I mean, it's just amazing. It's
He's
just
Mbappe.
is Mbappe. Yeah, I mean, there is not much to say. I mean, you saw the World Cup. Well, he's just himself. Um, so yeah.
I
But France
just
will be among the favorites, regardless of who is the coach. And the main difference will be that if it's Deschamps, you will see interesting games. You will see games where you have a lot of goals because this is what happens, but not as much control as I would like. And I hope that with Zidane, we might be able to develop a style that is a bit more about control rather than reaction. We're very good at reacting. We saw that with Argentina in the final, but I would like us to be in control for a little bit. So that's the main complaint.
my dream World Cup is France versus Italy Part 2, where Zidane headbutts head coach Materazzi, but that's not going to happen.
I
That
mean,
Could do,
was
could,
in that case, I would be happy either way because my second team is Italy,
that
so
that
it would be
match
much less painful.
actually that match actually is one of my earliest footballing memories. My earliest football shirt was a Messi shirt when he was still wearing number 19. But my earliest memory is Zidane turning around and smashing his head against Materazzi's shoulder. Ugh. The
I was too
fact that
drunk. I don't remember that
the
final.
Britishness of Scottish people and John Elway have come up in this podcast means I'm gonna have to wash my mouth out with soap. Don't call Scottish. Do not. And I know that and this is not just a real football podcast thing. When you are talking about the England national team, do not use the word British. They are not British.
especially
They
coming,
are
especially coming from a
English.
French. Yeah, very
Most of them
offensive,
are
especially coming
Irish. Let's
from a
be
French.
honest.
They all look the same.
Look, I'm well
I
aware
wanted
of the fact that the
to
greatest
give
trick
praise to.
Scotland ever pulled was convincing people that we're not part of the British Empire. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying, in the words of Jose Mourinho, do not tie us to those specialists and failures who wear white. Which, by the way, I am currently living in Baltimore. The World Cup was in Qatar. I think last night I saw Harry Kane's penalty pass me in orbit.
Omar, you were saying something, and
No,
I just
I had forgotten to praise Mbappe because in my talk about Argentina, I wanted to just say that I mean that was really just an amazing final, obviously, but it also shows. I mean, the thing about statistics from a footballing fan versus a critic of sort of the modern game, but I see that Matt, you think it's going to destroy the game. You're not criticizing it from the perspective of that it's sort of for profit seeking or which is true. It allows us comparisons that otherwise, you know, that I like from sort of people who like Messi has had a period of sustained excellence for 17 years versus someone who like played for 3 or 4 years at a very high level. It allows us to put things in perspective. But what I really wanted to say is that Mbappe. I mean, I think this next decade is Mbappe's. I mean, by the time Mbappe that's why I really want to insist that Messi is the GOAT now, because I think by the time Mbappe retires, the guy might have multiple World Cups, multiple Champions Leagues, like a resume unlike anything else in history. To me, I take him over Haaland any day of the week in terms of all around game. I have to say, from my perspective, I know there's never going to be an easy debate in sports about who's the greatest.
But is
And
there?
maybe
Sorry, Omar.
what's that?
Is there anybody who says that? Oh, wait a minute. I'm not even on here. Is there anybody who ever says that Holland is actually like somebody who surpasses Mbappe, except maybe like in a I don't even know if in particular scoring within the carré or the the box. I mean, is there anybody who says that seriously?
I actually think
I don't
Holland
know.
is a
Maybe
more
Matt
clinical
does, but
finisher.
my take is that he's Mbappe is really the best. And but the reason, just and then I have to end with a praise in Messi. The reason we most of us who love Messi is because he pulls unscripted things. I agree with you. Like when you look at Manchester City, when they play, you know exactly how the game is going to be. You don't know necessarily if they'll win, but you know that they're going to suffocate the other team and the other team might win on a counterattack or something like that. Crazy things rarely happen, but with Messi, the reason why we like that kind of player is because he pulls out a pass like he did against Holland, which is like still impossible to sort of decipher. But sorry, this was meant to be a praise for Mbappe, and I'm willing to bow down to Mbappe as the next GOAT in the next decade. So that's my piece.
It's going to be like Messi versus Ronaldo. You've got Mbappe has, and I know they don't play the same way. Mbappe has all the skills, just like Messi has all the skills. With that said, Holland is a goal scoring robot, much like Ronaldo was. I just wish he never scored against Spurs. Oh my god, I hate that
Mhm.
man. Which
Yeah,
Matt, what if he
Bassam,
played for Spurs?
you asked me
What
to
if he played
mention
for Spurs?
Foucault.
Mm.
You asked me to mention
Sorry?
Foucault, Bassam. I am aware that my football club is my mental prison. I'm not going to quit my football club, no matter how gray they turn my hair.
You got a long way to go there. I think your hair is fine. So, can I ask a
I
question? Typically, in past World Cups, there's usually a bit of a lull, and then the league starts again. And
we haven't
um,
seen that as much,
does
and I think
anybody
that's actually been helpful.
does anybody feel that, like, I mean, we know that, right? We knew it was going to be like this, but it was just so back to back to back, back to the leagues, the cup games, all. I mean, it's been a bit disorienting. I wish I had a little bit more time to really savor the World Cup, go back and watch
Mm.
some of the highlights. And what do you guys think? Do you feel the same way?
I think
I
you're
mean,
nuts because what do you
there is
mean
a
you
question of
want
mental
any
health also
days
for the player.
without football?
Sorry, Matt. I know.
Well,
I
there's
know. Go ahead, Toma.
Matt Toma was trying to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like there is us as viewers. I'm just also more like thinking about the mental health for the players, because even if the World Cup is in terms of like the kind of football, the level is kind of weak. I mean, the intensity is weak. It's not great football compared to like Premier League or Champions League. Mentally, it's very difficult. So you can see that typically Kimmich from Bayern Munich was talking about his depression. We know that athletes have like depression issues, and one of the ways in which they can cope with deception, disappointment, is like a real break. And and weirdly in Germany they had a real break. They had like 3 weeks, and according to Kimmich, it was not enough. And he was still reeling from what happened, especially since he left the World Cup early. I see that typically Matt Lloris is like in a deep hole right now, and he just ended his international career. He did what was going to happen, that is to say, saved no penalty in the final, because Loris can do many things, but saving penalties is not one of them, which makes Kane's miss even more impossible to understand, knowing that you just need to actually hit the target for the goal to be in. But anyway, so my point is that you have all of these players who are mentally, I would say, tired. Some of them, like Neymar, also during the World Cup, were injured, went through a process to come back as soon as possible, but are still reeling from this injury. You can see that Neymar is not at 100%, and he has the Champions League coming in 2 weeks. So he had to come back very rapidly for the World Cup, a very short break, then coming back for football and coming back for the Champions League. So his body is not recovering. And again, Neymar is, I don't care if Neymar dies, I don't like him. But my point is a bit excessive, but it's not that far from reality. But nonetheless, I think that what is doing to the players, both their body and mind, is very dangerous. And again, for what for? For money and the greatness of Qatar, which is a good thing. So okay, all agree.
First of all, I want to apologize for talking over you. I didn't mean to do that, Thomas. Second thing is that you're right, but going without football, especially in today's global climate where there's crises all over the place, people like us, the peasants, we need football. We need our bread and circuses. Does that mean that I don't think players' mental health is important? No. But football is an escape from all this crap. And I'm not going to get into details on this podcast, but I had a very rough December and January with my mental health. And one of the things that helped me not go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs was football. So while you're right, it's hard for me to conceptualize that these multi-million-dollar athletes can't just, shut up and play. Not to say they should be robots. They shouldn't be. Their mental health should absolutely be respected, but I need to see people kicking a ball around in order to keep myself sane.
Some of them are robots. Others are not. That's I think the main issue with athletes.
Well, we're not talking about Holland because he's a goal-scoring robot from Mars, and no one will convince me otherwise.
Ahmad?
No, for me, I think obviously I agree with Thomas about the mental state of some of these players. From my perspective, I kind of have no interest in. I mean, this is why nothing beats the World Cup. The emotional roller coaster, you can't get it anywhere else. Obviously, the quality is not as good, which is why the game you get games like that we got, because if the quality was so high, you wouldn't get these openings. But right now, I have no interest in the Premier League, no interest in the Champions League, and I feel, given that I'm happy that Argentina won, the universe is balancing it with Liverpool might even be relegated. You never know, basically. So, at this point, this is why I don't care. At this point, I got my piece of the world as a football fan, and what happens this season is a wash for me. So that's how I am.
Liverpool will not be relegated this season. Talk about overreactions.
He's joking, Matt.
I mean, the
Never know.
neighbors of Liverpool, if Everton fans said they were going to be relegated, I'd absolutely take them seriously. But just,
I mean,
you all have
you never know about many things. I don't think this is one of them. Matt, what do you want us to finish? What do you want us to finish with, so that we don't keep people for too long? I think we just hit an hour, and I was just speaking with Khalid on the side because Khalid was asking a question, and this is the first time we actually. This is pretty good, actually, after 2.5 years.
Hey, it's
I
a work
think we
in
had some
progress.
good.
You're also
I think
the
we had
one
good
that
episodes before.
Yeah, no, good episodes, and I'm talking about the sequence.
I do actually have something I wanted to finish on, but also didn't want to finish on. But we're gonna finish on it anyways because fuck it. You know, we talk every day in the Real Football group about football, about politics, about all this other crazy shit that's happening in this world. There are two notes I want to finish this episode on. First of all, I love doing this. I really love doing this with you guys and talking football and just forgetting all the bullshit that's happening in the world for a couple hours, even if it means I'm frantically writing script notes the night before. The second note is that, and this happened. This came up in the Real Football group about a couple of weeks ago. You all want me to write a football book. I am willing to do it if you guys are willing to help me. Bassam, you're muted.
Are you trying to catch us while we're live online?
The reason I'm
Just like
catching you live is because I need to hold myself accountable.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
otherwise, I'm gonna be a chicken shit and I'm gonna crap out. If
I
I put it on camera, I'm gonna do it.
We will support you in all ways, and I don't think anybody here or the other 10, is it the 10 people, the other 7 people, have any doubt that you would do something really remarkable, and I think with its own flavor that is quite productive and both entertaining and useful. So go ahead, my friend. This is your moment. What else?
I mean, that's all I
Matt,
had. I just
I promise if you send me drafts of something, I will read it and give you my honest feedback about it. If this is a project that you want to do, a lot of us, this is what we do for a living, and I'm happy to do it because I like reading about sports. So
I'll,
this is my contribution.
and Abdullah, who's written an edited volume, will also be there. Many people already indicated that they will support. And guess what I'm going to do? Whoever wants to join me in doing this, let's do one of those things that a lot of people do online. The GoFundMe thing. We'll have some sort of a drive, and then we all can contribute to it. I will contribute handsomely to it, and see if others want to, and we will announce it during our show. And you, given your recent graduate student who is employed now and moving up in the world, there's a justification for these funding, as opposed to, for instance, somebody like me who's old and has a job, has been in the
Old
same
and
job for
decrepit.
years, and
Old and decrepit.
or Khalid, who's like in what are you in, Khalid? IT or security or what?
Are we still live?
Oh, we're still live. What are you in?
are you mercenary?
Cybersecurity.
Yeah, he makes more money than all of us, so maybe Khalid can also contribute
True.
to your funding, the funding of the book. All right. Anybody else? Toma, you were much more polite than I expected, given how your tweets or your messages were rated R to rated
Not
triple
really.
X. So
No, but what is the point of saying bad things about Messi? I mean, I don't like Messi as a player, and I find him dreadful to watch lately because he walks and he does something for 5 minutes, and I'm not interested in players who play 5 minutes in a game. I find it like he's not useful to his team. He's useful for like 5 minutes. It's very annoying. In the World Cup, he did that. Like against Mexico, he's terrible. 10 minutes, he does something, and then he shuts down. I'm sorry, that's not interesting. That's not football. That's just like and like that's NBA to me.
that's more
Like you have
like it.
one franchise player, and the rest of the team is playing for him. But one thing that I wanted to say is that Mudrik, what is it, whatever his name is, like for 100 million.
Yeah,
What is
Mudrik.
happening?
Mudrik. Yeah.
Like the Premier League is
the
just such
Premier League is
like a
smoking
bunch
crack,
of.
is what they're doing.
One needs to regulate
Chelsea
this shit
specifically.
rapidly because this is just like nonsense. It's creating bubbles after bubbles after bubbles. And what happens? And I'm going to finish on this, Khalid. What happens that other clubs cannot keep up, and you end up with Juventus doing what they usually do, is that they like cheating with the accounting in order to keep up financially because they cannot, and they get caught and then penalized. And what is going to happen is going to be like a trickle down effect, and the entire Serie A, like the calcio, is going to be impacted. And like the kind of financial nonsense that happens in the UK, or in England, is impacting Europe, impacting the world. And as always with capitalism, it doesn't know boundaries, and it's destroying everything on its way. And so the fact that some people enjoy Premier League football is good, but what is the price of it? It's destroying all the championship, the leagues around it, and that's a real problem, and this needs to be stopped.
It
That's
is
a
the
great
history of
seed for the next
Juventus.
episode.
All right,
Stop the
absolutely.
Premier League. Kill the Premier League.
Let's make a note of it. Alex and Omar, Khalid, any final words?
My
No,
my
just thank you everyone
very
for
I'll
allowing me to.
just say.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Alex
Go
wanted to
ahead,
come.
Alex. Since you're the
Go
new.
ahead.
All
Go
right.
ahead,
No,
Alex.
I just wanted to thank everyone, and I I don't know if this goes into the seed for the next episode, but Apple TV has a like 4-part series about the European Super League and how everything you know started and fell apart. It's very interesting. Nasser Al Khalifi almost comes out as the good guy in the whole thing, which is interesting. But
We love
yeah, so I
Nasser.
just
We
wanted to
love
recommend
Nasser.
that to everyone.
I
But
love how
thank you
Thomas
again
is
for
crazy about Qatar. We have two people living in Qatar and one person who's living there vicariously. Abdullah and Alex, and then Thomas. All right. Okay, Khalid.
Sure, I can go. I just want another reason why I wanted to be a little bit of space between the end of the World Cup and the beginning of football again is just so I can savor what the monumental trajectory of the Moroccan team. That was the
Yeah, we didn't
massive
talk about this. That's
surprise.
too bad.
Made 40 million people in Morocco and millions in diaspora and other non-Moroccan people who just jumped on board. And I mean, I like people I haven't spoken to in a long time. I've been getting texts and messages congratulating me as if I was on the pitch. But it was such a nice dream, such a moment of unity that made people forget about all the hardships, socioeconomic hardships in Morocco, the crisis of COVID, and so on. It was just a beautiful dream. It was a beautiful thing that brought a lot of people together. So that was one of the nicest memories that I'll uh, hold on to for forever.
The Atlas Lions will roar again.
I hope so.
All right, Omar.
No, this was great. I wish I had been able to join earlier. I like Tomas's provocations. We should get more into that in future episodes. And I could reply with something like, unlike Mbappe, who plays the whole match and doesn't show up just for 2 minutes, and that back and forth type of thing, which we could get into, which would
I
be great.
but
But
I have to stop here so I don't make a big deal out of it later. I just want to say that it's not fair to respond to Thomas' comment about Messi just playing a couple of minutes. I think Thomas should be able to say whatever he says, given what happened.
I'm also watching like 40 games
oh,
of Messi a year. So at this point, I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. Just like I want him to go out of my life.
It's like he's sleeping with your partner or something.
but
Uh,
the thing I'll say about that is not about that, but about the fact that Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, Haaland, Neymar are now all directly or indirectly on the payroll of Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia tells us something that it's we talked about capitalism and data. I mean, and there's something more about like sort of hyper capitalism, mega whatever it is. It's kind of interesting to see that all the top stars in the world, so to speak, are now on that. Maybe we should be rooting for the old wealth like Real Madrid and whatever Barcelona and those kind of teams. Even though,
No.
but
So,
okay, hell
sports
no,
watching. We should add that to the next episode.
sports watching. But anyway, Thank you, guys.
Definitely.
This was great. I appreciate everybody here.
Legendary golfer Gareth Bale will not have that slander saying that we will root for Real Madrid.
Is he going to go play on the Live Golf
PGA.
Tour? PGA.
PGA.
Okay.
He's
This
playing in a
matters.
pro-am tournament next week. My boy Gareth Bale, Spurs legend and legendary golfer.
Awesome.
Are we
Good to
doing
see
this
you
again?
guys.
Are we doing
You're on mute.
Are we doing this again? Oil and football. We did this before. All right. This is oil. Okay. So absolutely, we'll do this again with a few pointers. We'll follow up on Matt's book, and hopefully by then we can have a real discussion about players who are in their upper 30s, which is based on this article I read. I mean, the article just mentions it. This is the first, I guess, decade in which we see as many people over 35 still operating at at the high level, not in terms of the performance maybe, but also in terms of the where they're playing. So it's also good to talk about fitness and how it has changed, where Pele and many others were close to wanting at least to retire or kind of slow down way before. So it'd be great if if we can bring that up a little bit and talk about the question of training, physique, development. I mean, all sorts of reasons why this has been happening. And I look forward to the Champions League, and we all have a date on the Google Sheet to see who's going to get this right. Anything else?
I thought you said we all have a date. Okay, good to see everybody.
Peace. Thank you all.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.